Hello students, welcome to the second video of respiration chapter. We are going to study about the mechanism of respiration in this video, and we are also going to see how oxygen gets transported in the blood. Thank you. Welcome to the second video of human respiration. In my last video we studied about the respiratory system of man, and in this video we are going to study about the mechanism of respiration. We have already seen what is the definition of respiration. Now we are going to study about its mechanism. Respiration can be of the following processes. It is made up of the following processes. The first one is breathing, then external respiration, internal respiration, and cellular respiration. We are going to study about the first part, that is breathing. It is a physical process which involves inspiration or expiration, also called as inhalation and exhalation. We will first see how inspiration is done. Now, inspiration is in a process in which the atmospheric air, that is oxygen, is taken into the lungs. It is an active process. Now, what happens in this? The first thing what happens is the diaphragm, which is dome shape, it becomes flat. The intercostal muscles, they contract, due to which the ribs and the sternum move upwards and outwards. That is, when you inhale, you feel your chest expanding. This is exactly what happens. This leads to an increase in the thoracic volume, because of which the pressure decreases in the thoracic cage and the air enters inside your lungs. That is, you breathe in oxygen. Now, what happens in expiration? Expiration is exactly the opposite of inspiration. In this, the air, that is carbon dioxide, is given outside from the lungs to the atmosphere. It is a passive process. That is, ATP molecules are not used up. Now, what happens here is the diaphragm, which is flat, it goes back to its original position. The muscles, intercostal muscles, they will relax, because of which the ribs and the sternum move back to their original position. They go downwards and inwards. This leads to a decrease in the volume. The volume decreases, leading to an increase in the thoracic cage pressure, and the air is given outside. That is, you breathe out carbon dioxide. We'll see it in this image, how inspiration and expiration takes place. Now, this is the diaphragm, which becomes flat. The intercostal muscles, they'll contract, because of which the ribs and all will move outwards. There's this space created in the thoracic cage. The pressure decreases and the air will from outside enter inside your lungs. Now, what happens in expiration is exactly opposite. The flat diaphragm will come back to its original dome shape. The muscles will relax, and the thoracic volume decreases, because of which the air will go outside due to increase in the pressure. That is, you breathe out carbon dioxide. One expiration and one inspiration gives you one breath. You can also try a small activity in this. You can count the number of breaths you are taking now. That is, if you are sitting and relaxed, you can count the number of breaths in 1 minute. And then you can just do on the spot jogging for maybe a minute or two, and then count the number of breaths you are taking. Do you think there will be any difference? Or if it is there, why it is there? Please find it out. Next we go to the next topic, that is external respiration. Okay, now what do you mean by external respiration? Now, in external respiration, exchange of gases takes place at the alveolar level. You have studied about the alveolus in my last video. Now, what is an alveolus? It consists of a layer of simple squamous epithelium. Now, outside this alveolus, there is a high dense network of capillaries which is there. That is, blood vessels are there, and because of which they make a respiratory membrane by which diffusion of gases can take place. The gases will exchange from an area of higher partial pressure to an area of lower partial pressure till the partial pressure on both the regions reach an equilibrium. Now this is what happens. See the image. Now here inside here the oxygen is maximum, while in the blood capillaries carbon dioxide is maximum. So partial pressure of oxygen is more in the alveolus, while partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more in the blood capillaries, and that is why the carbon dioxide is given inside, it diffuses into the lungs, while oxygen is diffused into your blood capillaries. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in your pulmonary capillaries is around 45 mm of mercury, while that of oxygen in pulmonary capillaries is 40 mm of mercury. There are some terminologies which are connected with your lungs, that is respiratory system. We are going to see about them, the various pulmonary volumes and capacities. Now the first one in that what we are going to study is the tidal volume. It is the volume of air what you normally breathe in and out, that is around 500 ml. Next is inspiratory reserve volume. This is the maximum volume of air that when you take in forceful breathing, when you forcefully inhale, that is called as inspiratory reserve volume, that is around 2000 to 3000 ml. Next is expiratory reserve volume. That is the maximum volume of air that is given out when you forcefully exhale. That is around 1000 to 1100 ml. Now there is some volume of air that remains in your nose, in your trachea, in your bronchus, that is called as dead space. It is around 150 ml. They are not involved, this gas is not involved in the exchange, gaseous exchange. Next is residual volume, that is the volume of air that remains in the lungs and dead space even after maximum expiration, means the one which is remaining in the lungs. It is around 1100 to 1200. Now what do you mean by lung capacities? The total lung capacity, the maximum amount of air that the lungs can hold after a forceful inspiration. That is your whole capacity. It is around 5200 to 5800. And what do you mean by vital capacity? The maximum amount of air that is exhaled out after you inhale to a maximum capacity. A total of tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume around 4100 to 4600 ml. Now we are going to see further the C part of your respiration, that is internal respiration. Now in internal respiration we are going to study first the transport of oxygen. Now oxygen can be transported by the plasma or the RBCs. The first one is plasma. Only 3% of your oxygen is transported in a dissolved state by plasma, while your blood cells help in transporting the remaining 97% of the oxygen with the help of hemoglobin, which is present in your RBC. Now hemoglobin acts as a respiratory carrier. It has a very high affinity, that is attraction for oxygen, and easily combines with it to form a molecule called as oxyhemoglobin. One hemoglobin molecule will combine with 4 oxygen molecules to give you oxyhemoglobin, and when this reaches the tissues, it will readily dissociate it. It will go back into hemoglobin and oxygen. This is the reaction which takes place. This is how the reaction takes place. But the ability of hemoglobin to combine with oxygen, it depends on the partial pressure of oxygen. At the alveolar level, that is in the lungs, the partial pressure of oxygen is more, and that is why the oxygen can easily combine with hemoglobin. While at the tissue level, what happens is the partial pressure of oxygen is very less, due to which the oxyhemoglobin will break down into hemoglobin and oxygen and give oxygen to the tissues. Now the relationship between hemoglobin, that is and oxygen, that is oxyhemoglobin saturation, and the partial pressure of oxygen can be given in a graph. This is a graph which shows the oxygen pressure here and the hemoglobin oxygen saturation. Now this can change. If there is high concentration of carbon dioxide, the curve, which is sigmoid, it will shift to the right. This is what happens, and this is called as the Bohr effect. Next is the Haldane effect. Haldane effect is the effect of carbon dioxide on the oxyhemoglobin. The relationship between oxyhemoglobin formation and carbon dioxide, that is given by the Haldane effect, where there is the change in the pH of the blood can easily affect the oxyhemoglobin production. Bohr effect and Haldane effect together facilitates oxygen transport in the blood. They both help in the transport of oxygen by the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Now, affinity of hemoglobin for carbon monoxide is also more, and sometimes it leads to something called as carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide can combine with hemoglobin 250 times more than oxygen. That is, if oxygen is available and carbon monoxide is available, hemoglobin is going to bind with carbon monoxide. This is what happens in some cases of fire, where the room is completely filled with smoke, or in a garage where there's too much of smoke, or when there's too much of exhaust gases, where the air is filled with carbon monoxide. At such times, the hemoglobin, instead of combining with oxygen, it goes and combines with carbon monoxide, because of which oxygen is not available to a person, and the person may be deprived of oxygen, and it may also sometimes prove to be fatal. Next is the transport of carbon dioxide, which we will be studying in my next video. Thank you.